Also, guten Tag. Wir sind wieder zusammen. Kerstin.
Just of English. Oder?
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. We're here again, Kerstin, Heusinger, and Djamila, and we're reporting this time from a different location. We were at the courthouse before, but we decided to go and look at what this fuss is all about. Mm-hmm. And behind us is Reiner Fuellmich's former house in Göttingen, the house in which he put the 700,000 that he borrowed from the Corona investigative committee. And well, you can see it behind us. We can't move very much because of the frame. Mm-hmm. Kerstin, what were your impressions of today?
Well, just mentioned probably that it was the 31st day of trial, and I don't even remember. We are the 20th of September, and well, it was. I mean, it was quite absurd. It was even more absurd than the former times because it started with a break. It started with a break. It was not. There was not.
Well, first of all, it was late again.
It was late again, about 20 minutes, I think, or maybe a little bit more.
20
something
minutes,
like that. Yeah. And then there was just there was somebody working for the court saying, well. It starts half an hour later. There's a break now. So.
Yeah, because Katja Wörmer, the lawyer for Reiner Fuellmich, and Tobias Pohl and Edgar Simon, the three lawyers that were present today, they had some things to discuss, or it was actually Reiner who had to discuss some things with them.
Reiner who asked for that.
Reiner had gone through the big dossier against him, and he had found some stuff that he wanted. Yeah, he had found some stuff, but that came only at the end of the thing. But therefore, they needed half an hour, they said. But
it was an hour. I think it was something like an hour, right?
Yes.
So it was even before Reiner didn't even show up this time, and the court, it was not officially there either.
No, it hadn't even started, and there was a break.
Yes, it was just somebody saying, "Well, there's a break now." So it was quite absurd because everybody checked in. It is always like a big check-in at the airport, even worse than that, actually. And then, well, go out and check out again.
Yeah, and the people in the public gallery, they didn't first get it because it was said so quietly.
Yes.
That we had to sort of mouth it, there's a break, and then there were two new guests from Holland, and they were totally bewildered.
Yeah, I mean, tell us about that, Djamila, because you see everything from the Netherlands view, so things are observed quite differently. And you said that both of them gave a fresh view.
Because we sit there and we are already a bit used to this palaver.
Yeah.
Just to make the first story, to finish this off, so after the first hour break, there was about 5 minutes, or I don't know how long we had.
Very short.
Before there was another half-hour break. And that was because after discussing things with Reiner, they had handed over some requests for more evidence. There were two witnesses that had been invited. Marcel Templin, who is sort of the key witness in this thing, but the court so far has refused to invite him, to hear him.
And he was not there either, right?
And so the court said that Marcel Templin had given them the information that he hadn't received the invitation, either in time or whatever, and he was, he couldn't attend because of other arrangements. And Katja Wörmer, who was the one who invited him, didn't even know. I mean, she was told beforehand she was expecting him to come, so that was an unpleasant surprise. So, but anyway, these sort of requests were handed in before the next half-hour break.
Yes. And as it's the self-reading procedure, they always go out and, I mean, they get these requests and then they go out and read them, everybody.
Yeah, they won't discuss it, but they will read it in their room, so to say, their back room. And that's when I went out then to talk to those two Dutch guests. Yeah. And they were, of course, by that time totally bewildered because they had come in, they had over an hour break before anything had happened. And then they had 5 minutes of German that they couldn't quite follow. And then it was another half-hour break. So they were saying, like, what's happened? I mean, at least they'd seen Reiner Fuellmich.
Yes,
come
very
in.
shortly, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was less than 5 minutes. Huh?
Yeah.
I noted 2 minutes,
Okay.
but probably, I
Yeah,
mean,
it could be.
it was
yeah.
very, very short. I mean, he was sitting down and he already stood up again,
Yeah.
something like that.
The judge. Yeah.
Yeah, and Reiner as well.
Yeah. Well, and then we had this half-hour break. Then there were interviews and discussions outside, and then we went back in again. And then what happened?
Good question. I guess it was close to another break then, but I mean there were. What was happening then?
Well, they had reworded. I think the judge was saying that that he was giving commentary on what was submitted.
On the requests, yes.
And then the submission for the one witness who was present. She's a lady who takes these wonderful notes really precisely.
Nicole, yes.
Nicole Wolf, and she is one of the witnesses. Just to state that Reiner had never said that he wasn't going to pay back the money. In her notes, there is no such remark, and she's very precise. She tries to be there as neutral as possible, just as a stenographer.
And minute per minute.
Yeah. So they reworded the request because to hear her, that was denied. Then they said, well, we want to do it differently. Then that was denied. And then Marcel Templin did the request to hear him. They said they were going to decide on it in the verdict.
In a hearing, Marcel Templin?
Yeah.
I did not understand that, but it was not quite obvious actually, because it's so, they come in and then it's very, very quickly things are being said and then we are out again. But I understood that Katja Wermer will invite him again.
Well, she asked the court.
She asked the court to invite him officially, because
then
I think
he can't refuse to come.
Yes.
Yeah. But the court has refused to invite him before, or has not done it before. I'm sure they requested it before. They have not done it.
Yes.
And now she has asked, please, can you do it? Because then he has to appear. And if then the court decides to not do it, then she will invite him again herself. So that was that. And then at the end, Reiner said he wanted to still. Then the judge said, "Okay, now we're gonna. Now it's time for those final, speeches." Yes, he said. And then Reiner quickly said, "But I still have two
questions,
two requests that I want to submit."
Yes.
And to make these requests, I need to ask you a couple of questions because I need to know where you stand on this in order for me to formulate these requests.
Exactly, yeah.
And these questions.
And I mean, I think for the first point, it was several questions. Well, I think the judge always, whenever Reiner opens his mouth, he is like, what is he going to tell again? And he's already, you see his attitude. And Reiner said, well, or do you want me to do this in silence again or something? I mean, Reiner was quickly saying something like that. And it was like always the judge tried to stop him. Yeah. He tried to stop him, but Reiner went on. And he said the first thing, are you, and this was a very, very important point that I did not knew actually. In the meantime, as Reiner has a lot of time in his cell, he's really using, I think, all of his time when he does not respond to letters, studying again the entire dossier, the entire folder.
Against him. Yeah.
Yes, against him. And he found that there was a secondary, like a folder within the big file that was given by the police, I think, if I understood correctly. And this folder is saying that this is a corona. This is kept under
the term corona.
The term corona.
Yeah, it was classified as a corona dossier.
Right. Yes.
Which then, and in it, of course, are details about Reiner Fuellmich. But so it illustrates how much this is related to the Corona Ausschuss, the investigative committee, his work for that committee against the corona narrative, and not that it's not per se a financial crime that it's here. That there's another thing. So that was one. So what Reiner really wanted to ask the judge is, are you aware of these couple of things? And then he named these things. So one was this folder.
Yes, and I mean, it was interesting that the judge responded, of course we are informed about everything that's within the folder. So he was kind of like admitting anyway that he knew about that.
Yeah, well, I think Reiner first summed up a lot of things.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
And then the judge said, you can assume that we know what's in the folder.
Right.
He didn't say we know or we don't know, but you can assume.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And well, the other things that Reiner said was, are you aware that I was allegedly deported from Mexico? That's the official statement. That's how it is presented here in this court. But in one of the...
it is presented as if he was extradited.
No, deported.
Really?
But there's a wording in the folder where it says he was extradited. Well, that cannot be the case, because then they have totally ignored the whole extradition procedure.
Right.
And why this is important is because they have found proof, or Reiner has found proof, maybe in the folder already, or it was given to him through Herr Miseré or whoever. They have statements saying that the Secret Service agent in Mexico is what we assume. There was a name, so we assumed it was this, because we know there was a secret agent in Mexico City.
A German secret agent, right?
Yeah, German secret agent. That he asked the state prosecutor, Jon, who's in this process, to please arrange the flight from Tijuana to Mexico City, and also to pay for the Lufthansa flight back to Frankfurt, and also to that he should be aware that there are two Mexicans coming along, and that the hotel cost for 2 nights for these 2 people should be paid by the German state.
The guys of the migration authority, right?
Yes, they accompanied him. Yeah. And so if the German state paid for it, then you can say it's an extradition. But they have never followed the procedure of an extradition, because if it had been an extradition process, then Reiner would have had a hearing in Mexico, because then Mexico, like in the case of Assange or other people who are extradited, they have to judge, can we send this person to this other country? Will he be safe? Is there enough grounds? And so, but they deliberately refuse to. That would take too long.
Yeah.
So and if it isn't an extradition request, but it is a deportation, why then did the German state pay for it? And so this question hasn't been addressed at all during the court. So that was the second one.
Yeah.
Then there was another one about...
It was, by the way, just to arrange that, I think it was this. It was very a lot. Katja Wermer, who was working on this extradition dossier. It was not Mr. Misery.
Oh, okay, but then Okay, and then there was another thing about the lawyer of Viviane Fischer.
Yes, yeah.
It was, can explain that better.
Yeah, the lawyer of Viviane Fischer. I mean, there was always this big question, are these loans? Are we talking about loans, or are we talking about some liquidity reserves, I think? And Reiner Fuellmich stated that the lawyer of Viviane Fischer, it's F, both of them, used this term of liquidity reserve for the first time 1 month after Reiner was arrested. So this term had never occurred before, at least not as a concurrence with the term of the loan, because that's the things that were actually discussed a lot. And I think he asked the judge as well, are you aware of that? Do you know that this term has never been used before by Viviane Fischer's lawyer?
Yeah.
So that's another point.
That was another point. And then there was this thing about seizing the money, that there is somewhere in the full, but I wasn't sure, did Reiner discuss this, or did this come up after the hearing? There was an issue that there was a order to not seize the money, because if they would seize the money, to not give the order to seize the money, because if the order to seize the money was given, then it would be followed up, and then they wouldn't have a ground to
keep the arrest,
to give out the arrest. Something like that. And then there was some dispute about afterwards, after the hearing, about but if they had seized the money, then Reiner would have known something was aloof, and he might have fled, and therefore they can't arrest him, and that's a normal thing to do, to not warn the person you want to arrest. But according to, I think, Mr. Simond, he said he thought it was about the order to arrest. So, well, that's a small detail, but yeah. In any way, it appears that there is more and more coming up that proves this is a political trial. And the judge rounded the whole thing off quite quickly after saying, you can assume that we know what's in the act. Joon didn't have anything to add.
No. And I mean, the judge is always saying, since a while, for a while, he's been saying that everything will be decided in the judgment.
Yeah.
So that's quite weird to hear, because how can you decide, how can you react to anything that will be decided in the judgment, right?
Yeah, but then I heard Katja Wurmer say, which is new to me, because I think that's different in Dutch law. I mean, in Dutch law, I think when the research is closed, the research is closed, that's it. But she said if the judgment of the individual request for evidence and witnesses is decided in the final verdict, then you can open the case for research again, which was new to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
Then you could again invite witnesses. Maybe I totally misunderstood, but so then it wouldn't be so odd. I mean,
yes, it would be different in
Then
that
it would
case,
be
but I
different.
didn't know that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, well, maybe I got it all wrong. So forgive me if next time it turns out it is all wrong. But anyway, so then it was decided that there wasn't any time for the defense to make their final plea.
Yeah.
So that has been now postponed to the 16th.
We have a big break until October 16th now.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one thing that we forgot is that when Reiner Fuellmich was asking to ask for these requests, or to get the information to be able to put these requests, the judge said, "This is not a question time."
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a question time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Just
then
a detail,
Reiner
but-
quickly said, "I need to ask these questions to make my request for
Yeah, of
evidence."
course. I mean,
Yeah, and then lawyer Simond also wanted to say something, but it was, the judge immediately said, "Case is closed. We're going on to the 16th." And he's very keen on not having this lawyer Simond speak, because he's always cutting him short, because he's the expert on business law or company law.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the hearing.
If you would like to call this a hearing,
We didn't hear anything.
a
but-
breaking rather than a hearing, but well.
Yeah. Maybe another thing to note is that neither Antonia Fischer for the second time and Frank Grosenbach for the first time, but they
Since a
weren't
while,
there,
yes.
which was interesting. The second state prosecutor, Recher, also wasn't there,
Yeah.
but sometimes they switch.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was that.
Yeah.
So we didn't hear the witness, we didn't hear any witness.
No.
And
probably you talked to these two visitors of the Netherlands who are experienced guys anyway with
protests and-
protesters.
yeah.
What did they say as a conclusion about this?
Well,
day?
they one especially was totally moved. I mean, unpleasantly moved by the whole thing. He said, "But this is horrendous." And I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what the thing I said the first time. Like, what is this? What's happening here?" And for both of them, it was really hard to see Reiner. He comes in with these handcuffs, but then when there's after only 2 or 5 minutes, there's another break. He's handcuffed again, and then they have to go down again. So that's quite hard to see. They were impressed with how with it and vivid he was in his questioning and his.
That's always impressive. Yeah.
They were very glad to have been there. I think they might come again to see the final pleas. But for me, it was very interesting to see how quickly you get used to this case.
Yeah.
Because to hear them say the things that I thought the first time or said the first time, you think this is such a crazy case.
Yeah.
And it's so complicated and so unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I understood, by the way, the lawyer that was proposed by the judges told as well that he had never seen a trial like this.
Yeah.
And he might, I mean, we did not interview him, but he might start to ask questions to himself as well. Because he said, I never saw something like that. I mean, usually everything should be discussed in front of the public, because that's why the public actually comes. Mm-hmm. All of that hasn't been done since, I think, almost 2 months now. And
since the 20th of July.
Yeah, no something more, like that, yes. Yeah. As we are the 20th, exactly 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so it's a censorship in the court.
Yeah. Yeah. And even him, whom he did not know, what was he for, what's his experience, what's his attitude, even he starts to ask himself questions, right? Yeah. And that's quite interesting, as everybody, and I think Reiner said as well that the people working for the prison and the justice say as well, we never saw something like that. Yeah. And that's interesting to state, because we start to find that normal, as we always see it now, but it's not normal. Nothing is normal here. No, and it keeps shifting. I mean, also also the charge keeps shifting, mm-hmm. and that's very odd. Yeah. We now have this. I mean, the charge is now, should he have kept the money, at their disposal or not? Mm-hmm. But is that worth, kidnapping somebody from another country for? Is this even proportionate anymore? And those questions are not asked in court. No, like, what are we actually? Is this a new case? Where are we? Yeah. Yeah. So that's our update. Mm-hmm. There will be a 3-week break, or almost 3 weeks. Yeah. Almost 4. Almost 4. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And thank you for watching. And thank you. Till next time. Yeah. Thank you. Hello, we made another stop impulsively. We're here at the Hartriegelweg number 6, which was the office of Reiner Fuellmich when he sold his house, and he then found another place to do his practice, his law practice. So that was this place. It is only 2 minutes from his former location. And I think he had a 5-year contract for mm-hmm. this place, but because he was arrested and landed in prison, they had to let go of the practice at the beginning, say March of 2024, and because he couldn't work, and therefore, no money came in, so he couldn't afford to keep it. We thought it might be just interesting as an addition to our reports.
Yeah, may I say something?
Yes,
it proves
I'm
behind the camera, sorry, but I mean, it shows again that there was no intention of Reiner's side to flee. Yes. Because if you flee, you don't keep a lawyer's office up at your own name. I mean, it's just impossible. So
that's the argument the other parties constantly saying. It's also the reason why Reiner is still in prison.
Why he's kept,
because they say no, he will flee the country, and but he never had the intention to flee. He had this other office which he intended to keep. He wanted to do practice in both countries, in the United States, in California, and here in Germany. And so we hope it was a nice addition to our report, and we'll be back on the 20th of October. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Djamila.